Hey everyone, so I am driving my Elantra and I want to go ahead and talk with you guys about my 1 year review of this car. That is correct, I have had it for 1 year and it's been pretty much a gem with a few issues here and there, but overall I can't really complain. So I want to go ahead and talk with you guys about it because ultimately, after having this car for a year, I think it's pretty necessary. So, a couple things that I do like, a few things that I don't like, so on and so forth, kind of like with every car. Some of the complaints might actually coincide with a lot of the problems that some people have been having with these vehicles, but ultimately there are some that I really just can't validate because I've never really had them. So let's go ahead and talk first about things that I do like about the car. So I do love the engine, and the engine is something that a lot of people don't really care about, but here's the reason why I do care about this engine. For one, they have a lower end torque. So the lower end torque is definitely something that I'm fond of because it actually allows the car to accelerate a little bit better at lower RPMs. So the car gets 130 pound-feet of torque at 4,700 RPM versus the full 6,000 that it would take for, like, let's say I spun the tires. That would say like a Honda Accord would get. So I do like it. As you can see, it picks up well. The transmission is pretty, firm in terms of shifts. It's not the fastest, but it's one of those things where, it is a Hyundai and you have to expect that. But I do love the responsivity of it. So for example, let's say someone is barreling behind me and I have to speed up. This transmission is pretty responsive, and it's one of those things where, you didn't expect that from a Hyundai because they ultimately were always slush boxes and very slow. So I do actually like that. And it's one of the good selling points of this car is the lower end torque. But at the same time, some people may not like it because the transmission is not exactly the fastest shifting. Now, I also do love the interior and the exterior of this car. The exterior, I think, is just gorgeous. Like, it's one of those things where some people, it's either a hit or a miss. You either really like it or you don't. So I'm one of the ones that just happen to really like it, and it kind of stuck with me. And, after driving the 2013 that's on my channel, I kind of fell in love with the car. And so when it was time for me to buy one, I went to a Hyundai dealership, and they've always treated my father pretty well. So I was like, oh, let me go ahead and try it out. And they treated me just the same. So that was good. Then they found out who my father was, and I was like, LOL, now they treat me like a king. But it's great, because now you've got two generations in the family, and Hyundai's like, what? We got a dad and a son. So, whatever. But, overall, it's pretty good. The car maintains speed as well pretty good. Like, if I ever had to really accelerate, I can. And it kind of keeps up, so that's also a good feature. The interior, like I said, is good. It's a little bit bigger than the older models, which classifies it as a mid-size car, and it ultimately allows, more functionality, so on and so forth. If you ever wanted to do Uber, you wouldn't have to worry about them being uncomfortable in the back seat. Seats are comfortable in this car as well, so that's another good feature of the interior. And, it's just one of those things where the car is overall pretty comfortable inside. I'm also fond of the gearing of the transmission. The reason being is that it provides pretty good gear ratios. They're not too tall, they're not too short. A tall example would be an Impala, a short example would be a Chevrolet Cruze. So this car has a right mix in the middle where the gear ratios are actually pretty good. So, it only has 6 speeds, but it utilizes them well. Engine is also, like I said, very responsive, so there's no issues there. And overall, it's just a fun car to drive, but I'm gonna say it's a fun car, but it's not fun to drive, and I'll explain that in a second. So what I'm gonna do, guys, is I'm gonna do a 0 to 60 because I can do an official one now, which is great. And I'll talk about another thing I just noticed with the AC on and off. So I'll go ahead and wait, and then I'll show you guys this 0 to 60 on this car because I haven't done one in a while. I actually tried to do one earlier, but my finger kept getting in the way on the camera. There we go. So the one thing I'm very fond of is the fact that for some apparent reason, the car has this weird whistle whenever it shifts at high RPMs, and I just love it. I don't know why it does that, and it sounds like a turbo, but it's not a turbo at all, and the other car did the same exact thing. So as you guys saw, the transmission is not very fast on upshifting, and it short shifts on first, but still, the acceleration's not bad at all by any means. So it's definitely something that I could live with, and hopefully this engine will survive. I don't do 0 to 60s very often, but like I said, those short block problems though. So let's go ahead and talk about some things that I particularly would change about the car. So for one, the upshifts in the transmission. I would like them to be a little bit more firm, but they're not horrible by any means, and they're definitely something that I could live with. The steering wheel, although I do like the heavy artificial steering that it does provide, it's too artificial, if that makes sense. And you also have to try to get the car over a threshold, so you end up overcorrecting it sometimes. The suspension, although I do like the stiffness of it, is a little too stiff at times, especially going over rough roads or if you're on a road trip. And it also is a solid rear axle, so it's not independent from the front, and with the flexing and so on and so forth, it kind of makes the car feel a little clumsy. So I do wish that the suspension was independent in the front and the back, because that ultimately would allow for a better ride. I haven't really experienced the issues that some people have in terms of the back end kind of going out from under them. Actually, I take that back. I have once, and that was going over this weird bump that was angled awkward. And for some apparent reason, my car is the only one that does it, but it feels odd going over that bump because I'm going to spin out. I'm also not exactly fond of the air conditioner. The air conditioner in this car is actually pretty weak compared to other vehicles, and it's just because it's smaller. So it's one of those things where I definitely would like the air conditioner to be more powerful, but then again too, I'm coming from like a 99 Camry and a 99 Accord, which had some of the strongest freaking air conditioners ever. So it's one of those things where I gotta kind of live with it, because newer cars unfortunately come at a cost. So one of those things there, but not really a big deal. The biggest issue I do have with this vehicle, and this is my pet peeve and I can't stand it, is the gas mileage. The engine itself is very efficient. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with the efficiency, but the actual mileage is horrible. So an example would be, I'm driving like from here to Los Angeles. I will go through 3/4 of a tank of gas at 40 miles a gallon because the gas tank is so small. And Hyundai did this obviously for, weight purposes and ultimately to get you to go to the gas station while still having an efficient engine. And unfortunately that causes a problem, because essentially you buy a car to go further on one tank, but really you're not going that much further. You're just basically, you're using less gas, of course, but you're not going much further in terms of your mileage. So it does kind of suck. But also too, if you're kind of coasting around in, let's say on, with the AC on in the city, you're getting like 20 miles a gallon, and that's not exactly a good thing considering the car is rated at 28. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to pay attention and know what you're buying. Also, let's say, for example, I'm just traveling, normal for me. Okay, so for me, I have to get gas like every week. So that's one thing that kind of annoys me, because gas tank does drop pretty quickly. As you can see, I was just at a half a tank and it just dropped a bar again. So it'll stay at that bar for a while, maybe for a good 20-30 miles, and then it will go ahead and drop to the next bar. So kind of annoying there, but overall, not really a big deal. I mean, for me, I bought this car because it's better on gas than my other one, and I liked it. So, I mean, would I buy it again? Maybe, maybe not, but I'm definitely thinking of going with more of the Subaru route because I do want a bigger vehicle. But then again, this car is good for my purposes right now. So basically, with the information that I've given you, I would have to say that this car, you may want to actually consider buying it, but buy it when it's under warranty. The reason being is that there are some issues I've had with it that the warranty would not have covered had I bought this car, let's say, at CarMax, for example, or any other areas of that sort. I also got the extended warranty, so everything is covered, so that may be an option for you. If you want to, lease this car. This car is a good leasing car, definitely, but just make sure that, you take care of it and you do your maintenance, because we all know that Hyundais, although good mechanically, they do have some issues in terms of electrical problems as well, so that's something to keep in mind. But if anybody has any questions, by all means, let me know. I'm just going to go ahead and get back to my stuff now, but I wanted to do my 1-year review. So that's about it, you guys. If you guys have any questions, let me know, and we'll kind of go from there. All right, have a good one.